القول قول الصوارم كي تسترد المظالم حتى الأراذيل ساموا رسول أهل العزائم القول قول الصوارم كي تسترد المظالم.
But this highly offensive question is asked increasingly these days, particularly on social media and by Christians, missionaries who, in my experience, taunt Muslims with this accusation that Mohammed was a paedophile. And this in particular is because of his marriage to Aisha. But when you look at the historical evidence presented in context, we find that this allegation is in fact baseless, and that's what I intend to do now, briefly. Scholars disagree concerning the age of Aisha when she married the Prophet, the earliest estimate being that she was 9 years old. This means that the marriage contract was ratified after Aisha reached puberty, which was considered adulthood in ancient Arab society. A marriage between an older man and a younger woman was customary and socially appropriate in that era, considering that such marriages were an important means of survival in a harsh desert environment and that people had a much lower life expectancy than they do have today. Professor Colin Turner of the University of Durham here in England, he is an expert on Islam in the Middle East Studies Department, explains the context of the Prophet's marriage. He writes, "A marriage between an older man and a young girl was customary among the Bedouins, as it still is in many societies across the world today. It was not unheard of in Muhammad's time for boys and girls to be promised to each other in marriage almost as soon as they were born, particularly if the union was of direct political significance to the families concerned. However, such marriages were almost certainly not consummated until both parties had entered adulthood, which Arabs in the 7th century tended to reach at an earlier age than Westerners today. It is highly unlikely that Muhammad would have taken Aisha into his bed until she was at least in her early teens, which was wholly in keeping with the customs of the day and in context not in the least improper." That's Professor Colin Turner, Islam, The Basics, published by Routledge, 2006, pages 34 to 35. The scholar of religions, Karen Armstrong, she's a very distinguished and accomplished publisher on Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, in her biography of the Prophet, writes, "There was no impropriety in Muhammad's betrothal to Aisha. Marriages conducted in absentia to seal an alliance were often contracted at this time between adults and minors who were even younger than Aisha. This practice continued in Europe until well into the early modern period. There was no question of consummating the marriage until Aisha reached puberty, when she would be married off like any other girl." End quote. That's from her Mohammed, A Prophet for Our Time, published by HarperCollins. Interestingly, Christian tradition records a similar marriage between, can you guess, the much older Joseph to the young Virgin Mary. And this is even more extreme. The Catholic Encyclopedia says of Joseph, a year after his wife's death, as the priests announced through Judea that they wished to find in the tribe of Judea a respectable man to espouse Mary, then 12 to 14 years of age, Joseph, who was at that time 90 years old, went up to Jerusalem among the candidates. That's the Catholic Encyclopedia in New Advent website, 1995. So she may have been as young as 12 and he may have been as old as 90. Christians cannot possibly use the Prophet's marriage to condemn Islam, for if they do so, they would have to condemn Joseph, Saint Joseph, the husband of the Virgin Mary, and I can't imagine they would ever do that.
أضاء وجه العوالم قول الصوارم كي تسترد المظالم حتى الأراذيل ساموا رسول أهل العزائم. القول قول الصوارم كي تسترد المظالم حتى الأراذيل ساموا رسول أهل العزائم. أنار مشكاة ليل من الضلالات قاتم وصاغ من بعض قوم جيلا مع الفجر قادم. فحطموا رأس باغ وذللوا كل ظالم حربا على كل حرب سلما لكل مسالم. القول قول الصوارم كي تسترد المظالم حتى الأراذيل ساموا رسول أهل العزائم. القول قول